Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me once again this week, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, Trevor?
What is going on? Today we're going to be talking about Gundam Evolution and a long overdue Dying Light 2 discussion now that the final episode of Friday Night Dying Light is out there for the world to see. The long 34-week epic saga of Cameron playing through the Dying Light 2 campaign, available now in its completion. No,
hmm
in its fullness. Sure.
Completion. You were right the
Yeah.
first
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Either of those. It is available to everybody now on YouTube.com/that nerdy site. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the game in particular. We're going to do kind of our long belated discussion on the game, as well as just kind of discuss kind of Cameron's process on the project and the things he's learned, things he liked, didn't like, all that fun stuff. So stay tuned for kind of a more, I think, introspective episode of That Nerdy Site Show. We're kind of just talking about like our process a little bit, I think, for part of it. But before we get into that, if you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So Cam, you literally just tweeted about it right before we started recording. Tell me about Gundam Evolution and what's going on in this game.
For sure. So for I think we definitely. I'm glad that we're starting off with this. I think we kind of have to, considering like the topics of discussion, the topics of discussion today. It makes sense to start off with this, but also because I don't want to. I want to like, hey, if you want to know my thoughts on Gundam Evolution, let's front load that, and then we get to the other stuff later. But my thoughts on Gundam Evolution are, I'm actually really, really impressed. Primarily because this is a free to play game. I think if this had a 20, 30, $40 attached like price to it, I don't know if I could just like straight up recommend this game to people. If Gundam enthusiast, I could totally do that with, but as far as like actual like regular people, I don't think I could. Just because I don't think there's enough there to really justify like a price tag that would like equate to the like offset of like the budget this game had. This game is essentially Overwatch but with Gundams instead. I think that it has a ton of strengths. One of them being it's a 6v6, like six mechs versus six mechs. Some like objective that's super simple. It's super straightforward. I played the beta when it came out, and then I played this one as well. I've been playing it over the weekend, and I have to say that I'm still really impressed by like what they've done with this game. Couple of things that I can immediately point out to that is interesting in the way that which it was designed is it was very much designed on a budget. This was not like this is going to be like the greatest project ever to come out of Bandai Namco. They had a set, you can tell they had a set budget, a set goal, and a set like plan that they wanted to go through, and I think they absolutely execute. It is not overly complicated. Abilities between the different Gundams and mobile suits are vastly different. No Gundam plays exactly the same, and they each have their own kind of unique hybrid type roles. You instead of having like a traditional tank, DPS, and heals, they go with more of a brawler, flyer, mid range, and long range. Brawlers are your upfront melee based characters where their abilities do a ton of damage. They have quite a bit of mobility, but they don't have as much HP/armor to be working with. So instead of them being like tanks and like, oh, they don't do as much damage, they flip that. They totally reverse it by just having, hey, these characters are not entirely glass cannons, but they operate under the mechanism of, if you know what you're doing, you are adapting to the hit and run methods that is needed to play this type of character, you're going to do well with it. like coming up on a group of enemies from behind. You can do a ton of damage, and if you're smart and capable, you can get out of that situation with like 2 or 3 kills just in one go. Brawlers can be incredibly effective, especially if there's 2 of them at the same time. One of the 2 different brawler types, and like they can just wreak havoc. But if your team focus fires on them, they're down in a heartbeat, super quick. So it's not impossible to take them on 1v1, especially if you have some distance. But like it just plays out super well, and it's not balanced yet. But I can see from where it was, especially during the beta, to where it is now. They are getting very close to the mark on. That being said, on the flip side of that, you have flyers. Flyers are your utility slash. So there's a couple different kinds of flyers, which is basically the Gundam turns into a like fighter jet, basically, or like an aerial jet. They have hang time in the air that they can, basically do some jet maneuvering and get in and out of situations, depending on their cooldown rate. I think both flyers that I've used have like I think an 8-second cooldown on their flying mode. But because of that, they can get to places pretty quickly. One is a DPS focused flyer. The other is a support focus, which actually like throws out like link cables to like give heals to your allies. And so you can use that in very interesting ways. One has a grenade, the other has a turret they can put down. It's really, really cool in the way that they're doing it. And then on to continue with that, you have the mid-range, which is kind of like everybody else. You have these mid-range fighters, which makes up kind of the bulk of everybody. But each Gundam has, and each mobile suit has a different kind of style and abilities they have. Some are focused more on, they have some utility, some have some like surprise melees, some have like some charge shot mechanics, and then you have long range Gundams, which are your snipers basically. There is a ton of utility and like it plays super well. I've really found myself really enjoying it. It's something that I keep finding myself coming back to over the weekend. Like I'll play 2-3 games and then stop, and then like a couple hours later, it's like, you know what I have time for right now? I have time for a game right now. I can fit a game in before dinner and do that. And overall, it's super straightforward. It's right now it's just demolition and capture, like King of the Hill kind of thing. Sometimes it's a hybrid of both, but overall, I think it's just done super well. But it also isn't trying to be more than it is. It knew its limitations, it knew its budget, and it knows that what people are coming for is really the variety of Gundams and mobile suits. And I have to give a massive hand to them, because you have your classics, like you have your like the original Gundam. You have kind of Barbados, who is like the one of the more recent Gundams to really like become popular lately. Like you have quite a few Gundams that like you notice it, but then there's a bunch of other Gundams and mobile suits, particularly the mobile suits, are pulled from not as widely available or not as like deeply viewed and not as like super popular mobile suits. Like you do have the Zaku. You have currently there's 2 Zakus, the melee and the standard Zaku 2. But they are done in such a way that makes it so like then you have some other ones. You have the Dom Trooper, like some real classics from the original Gundam that you like, yeah, they're definitely we're going to have these in here. But what's really interesting is to see kind of the variety of I'm going to say UC, like non-universal century Gundams that they have in there. Including like they have like they just have some really cool different ones in there. And they all have different abilities and techniques, and some of them are based around their toolkit that they're kind of known for and for being iconic in regards to. It's been super cool to kind of see this game come out. They put out their season pass just recently. Just on the 23rd, they launched without the first season pass going live yet, because they wanted people to get into the game, and they didn't want to have to roll out the kind of monetary features right away. Which I actually had a lot of respect for, because it let a lot of people know if they wanted to get into this game or not. Because if you played a couple of games, you're like, this just really isn't for me. Well, you're not going to go back later and then spend the money on the season pass. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I think it rolled out very well because of it. I really liked the kind of approach to it, because it also made me very, very much internalize in my mind, On the 23rd, I can drop a little bit of money, get my season pass, and start earning up ranks that way. Alternatively, outside of the season pass, um, you have uh, like player ranks and or not ranks, sorry, player levels.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you aren't buying into the season pass, you're still unlocking like through their system and the reward system through the actual like player level aspect of the game. It's done very smart. I think it's just really well constructed, really well thought out, and really well planned. I just don't think that this is going to be like this was not funded for the intent of it being like a like insert game killer.
Mm-hmm.
This was not going to be the Overwatch killer. This is not going to be the Counter Strike kill. Like this was filling a niche that they knew that they could fill, and they've done it, I think, extremely well. And I look forward to seeing. Like, I'm excited. I want to know what new Gundams are coming out. I want to unlock the in-game currency so I can unlock the other Gundams. So there's a series of Gundams that are locked behind a currency, or you just buy them outright, or you buy a package. Like, there's multiple ways of getting these Gundams. I'm excited to unlock them. I want to try them out. Some of them I don't even like. I'm not even too familiar with, and so I can't wait to kind of get into that. But yeah, right now I'm maining Unicorn Gundam because it's rad as hell because it has it's a full support Gundam where it has a passive where it heals people around you. So you don't even have to activate an ability, it's just passive, you just heal people. And then there is a ability where you basically give everybody in the area that you're healing around you an armor boost that lasts for a few seconds. And like I've saved efforts. I've won games by doing that. Just by knowing when to hit my E, when to boost the armor of everybody around me. And then there's a shield funnel that he does where he launches basically these Gatling shields at a target and it homes in on them. And it's really cool. And if you're using it really smart and you're being very wise with it, also he just has a automatic kind of Gatling gun that is like has a longer reload than the other guns in the game, but I think it trades off super well because it has a wide spread, and then you can use the alt fire to bring it in and like really close up the spread on it to really do some accurate shooting. And it's just done extremely well. So I've just been kind of really not blown away by it, but just really enjoying it. I'm very enthused about the game and what I think it can end up doing. So
A few questions. So that I had kind of as you were discussing it, and then you started to address a couple of them. So, one was like it's a free to play game. So how are they making money on it? Obviously, you identified Battle Pass, and then an in-game currency that is separate from the Battle Pass. So,
Mhm.
so like the vibe I got is it's not purely cosmetic, a la Overwatch, and all the like the costume stuff and loot boxes and all that stuff.
There
Um,
is actually, yeah, there is.
I mean, yeah, there are cosmetic elements, I imagine, but you mentioned specifically that like some of the Gundams are locked behind in-game currency and stuff. And is it possible that those are like just better Gundams, or better like builds? Um,
No,
no.
because they're each different than the other Gundams that in Mobile Suits that are available.
Hmm.
That's the interesting thing about it. It's like these are locked behind it as sort of a so these are the Gundams and Mobile Suits that were not available during the like beta. And so I would compare it more to like Apex. Apex has champions that you have to either unlock through purchasing or through unlocking their in-game currency. So there's the EVO currency that you buy, and then there's just credits. And you can buy cosmetics. You can buy like there's all sorts of stuff you can buy that is tied directly to the in-game credits currency. Um, and there is some stuff like some outfits for the Gundam, the skins for the Gundams are locked behind a paywall. Now these are like the like in like overly insane over the top skins.
Hmm.
But if you're maining one of them, yeah, like I would like I've seen people like they've clearly dropped the money for it and like they're really good with that mobile suit. And I've faced off against some people who drop the money and they're not, and they are easy pickings because like you can just from a mile away I can see your like your holographic skin on your Gundam.
Hmm.
Like thanks for telling me where your head's at, man. It's great.
Um,
And then there's some people who just like knock your your face in, your
Yeah.
teeth in.
So my other question then, that was kind of like, because you started out basically it's Overwatch but with Gundam, and obviously I think y- uh, given that we had like a good chunk of an episode a few weeks ago devoted to educating me on Gundam because of your recent return to Gundam stuff, you are seemingly much more like a target audience member for a game
Oh,
like this.
100%.
Um, but even with that in mind, is this the kind of thing that like it's here and you'll engage with it until Overwatch 2 comes along? Like
Oof, that's a good
when
question.
Overwatch 2 comes along, is this like basically, well, that was fun while it lasted, but now I'm gonna jump into what the big boys bring to the table?
I don't know, maybe. The thing about it is like Overwatch 2, um, man, that's such a rough one because Overwatch 2 is such a amalgamation of just like weird nonsense right now. There's stuff that's like out in like the beta. Like I did not spend the whatever like $40 to get into the beta for Overwatch 2. I didn't do that. I wasn't going. I don't pay money to get into your beta. Period.
I didn't even know that
Uh
was a thing they did.
yeah, they did it. It was super
Because
weird
isn't the
and
game like
scummy
free to
and I hate
play
it.
this time
Yeah, it's
around?
going to be free to play. Yeah, but if you want to get in early, it's the EA early access
Um,
nonsense that I've hated. If you want to pay
Wait,
us $50,
Activision early access then?
whatever it
Because
is, yeah, whatever.
I was
Yeah,
like, oh wait, Blizzard is not EA.
no. But EA had the early access EA thing for like you had EA early
Yeah, I
access.
gotcha.
You could
It,
start like a week early or whatever.
yeah, like or there are plenty of games where it's like, hey, if you pre-order, you can like download it like a lot of like Square does this all the time. Like you can start playing the game 3 days early. It's like not if I buy the physical version. They're not sending me the physical version of the game 3 days early, so that is a moot benefit that you are quote unquote giving me.
Yeah,
Um,
no,
yeah,
for
I remember that.
100%.
I remember that I wrote a thing way back in the day on Trevor Trove, rest in peace now. Um, but the article actually still exists now on that nerdy site, where it was I remember as part of like I'm writing daily about games and stuff. I remember doing like one of the first ones I remember that being a thing on was a Deus Ex game. It was the Deus Ex sequel, where it was like, do this pre-order and you get to play the game 3 days early. And it's like that's a weird pre-order benefit or pre-order bonus, but yeah, diving into and like the conversation that was happening around that idea at the time. Um, yeah, weird that that they're now including that as like as a perk for I guess it's what would it be? It's probably like a founders pack kind of thing for Overwatch 2 where like,
Oh,
hey,
100%. Yeah,
if you
yeah, it
pay
is.
for
Mhm.
if you pay that $40, not only are we going to invite you into the beta, but we're also going to give you like currency to buy skins and are they keeping loot boxes for the second game?
No, loot boxes are gone.
Okay. In favor of season pass stuff then?
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff that I'm not too up on mainly because like I just don't want to give it the oxygen in my life right now.
Yeah.
I don't have room in my life right now for Blizzard to be disappointing me with Overwatch 2. Like I have other things going. Like
Fair
a lot
enough.
of stuff has happened the last week in my life that like the news of what's going on with Overwatch 2 is like super low. The only reason I'm even thinking like I'm even planning on getting Overwatch 2 and playing it is because Snowbike Mike wants to play. Like that's the only Mike Howard could get me basically in like remotely invested right now into Overwatch 2.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, so there's that. Yeah, so like I don't know cuz it depends on whether or not I think I want to hop into Overwatch 2 and give that a go. Um the big pull for me for Overwatch 2 was going to be its solo mode, like its single player mode.
Hmm.
And because I thought that the what I saw from what gameplay that was at BlizzCon a couple years ago, I thought was just like super slick. I thought it was super cool. This idea of like kind of the Diablo-esque nature of that story of like upgrading your singular hero that you're playing throughout the campaign like that. I thought that was super cool and super slick. And to now it's just like, nope, it's just the multiplayer. So it's like, okay. And then they're like, but by the way, we're going to be killing Overwatch 1 when it comes out. And it's like, okay.
Wait, oh,
Um,
did they canceled the single player component of Overwatch 2?
no. The single player is going to be coming out next year. They
Okay.
say. So they say. Um,
Until it
Like,
makes a bunch of money and they're like, "You know what? Let's just put the resources into this." Who knows?
yeah, no. They have canceled, like, Overwatch 1 will be coming to an end,
Yeah,
with Overwatch 2 launches.
yeah. In the
So,
same way that what like could I mean, Destiny is pretty much did the same thing, right? Destiny 2 has engulfed all of OG Destiny server stuff at this point.
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't think you can play Destiny 1 anymore.
Yeah.
Which is sad because I actually like anyway, I have a lot of thoughts in regards like recently with like all this stuff coming out in Destiny 2 and like looking at the two games kind of side by side now of it, like I no longer recognize Destiny 2 anymore.
Yeah.
Like I fell off at a point that was still I think it was recognizable. It is unrecognizable to me now.
Mhm.
And rightfully so. Like I stopped playing. I just because like it's not the game that I wanted to spend my life with. I made a different decision, and her name is Final Fantasy 14,
There you go.
and I'm very happy with my decision.
Fair, very fair
Um,
point.
she just had some content come out recently, and I played it and I enjoyed it. I'm still in the middle of like finishing a bunch of other stuff on it, and she's been treating me very well. So that being said, back to the original point though of Gundam Evolution. I don't know if like it depends on how much they're willing to invest on the back end of this. I'm not super impressed by the variations between skins and like I think in the age of Overwatch where skins meant more than just a different color. Like there's actual aesthetic differences to things like that.
Hmm.
I don't know where Gundam Evolution kind of gets to live in because like it would have been really cool if some of the skin options were like a battle damaged, like battle scarred version of it of this Gundam. There's one of the Gundams, Gundam Exia, that is one of the Gundams that's locked behind the like you have to unlock. There's a variation of it in the anime of Double O Gundam of it being like semi damaged and like kind of like battle hardened after like years of not being able to be like get repairs, and like that could have been a cool alternative skin for it, but they didn't do that. And so like in the post Overwatch world where skins actually can mean things other than just like different color palettes, where does that leave us?
Hmm.
And I don't think Gundam Evolution put those, like I think if they had more resources maybe they could have put more time and effort into that, but at the same time I don't know, like I think the game just is like it's worked itself into balancing in a very interesting place. No Gundam feels super overpowered necessarily. I think people think brawlers are overpowered right now, and maybe they are. They're certainly a very intense and difficult to balance class of Gundams in this game. I definitely think that's the case because how do you convince people to play an all melee Gundam build when you're up against everybody else who can just fire a bunch of lasers at you? Like there has to be a give on that. And like we'll see what happens with it. But I think for where it is right now, I think it's very much in a good place. We'll see kind of how that kind of shakes out in the next couple of weeks. But overall, like yeah, I like it. I like what I'm seeing, and I look forward to more of it. I'm definitely gonna be playing more of it. That's for sure.
All right, cool. I'll be curious to see, yeah, how this one sticks with you and how I guess like in part because a lot of these kinds of games live and die by like the player base and how long the player base sticks around, and if suddenly it takes forever to try and get into a match because nobody else is out there playing enough to do it. It
Let
seems
me
like
put it this way: if the Gundam fans will be playing this game till the cows come home.
fair enough.
We are gluttons for punishment. There are so many bad Gundam games, Trevor.
My
So many bad Gundam games. Oh my gosh.
I grabbed lunch with the family today, and my sister mentioned that she and my brother-in-law were playing Valheim, and I was like, "Oh, I know that game." And I kind of related some of your stories from it from last year, specifically the like you died, but you died out in the middle of the ocean, and so you lost all
Oh,
your stuff out there.
that still gives me Valheim still gives me PTSD
Yeah,
every time I think about loading it up.
she was like, yeah, it's very nice that Joel is there with her to if she dies to like get her stuff, and kind of help
I
make that.
needed to for people out there, I needed to sail to the other island.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, cool. I spent so much time and effort and resources. And I'm like, well, when I get there, I'm going to need to make another base. So I put a bunch of resources on the boat with me. And then I'm out there. And all of a sudden, I'm attacked by a sea serpent and
Yeah.
I get destroyed.
Which was admitted, like, that was the one thing I knew about that game before you talked about it, was all of the people freaking out online about dying by sea serpents.
I invested so much time and effort into that boat building,
Mhm.
and just getting myself absolutely just like no shot. I had
T
no shot
top 10
of
anime
beating that.
betrayals.
Yeah, it was just such a
Valheim.
moment. Like I wish I'd been recording at that moment, because I definitely could have done like the for people out there who don't know,
The
or who
gym
know,
face, or
no, the JoJo,
oh,
like
the
the
JoJo, yeah.
dun, 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 dun,
To be
dun, dun,
continued.
dun. Yeah, to be continued.
Mhm.
Like
Um,
I 100% could have done one of those, just like, or like the emotional damage. Me definitely could have been fit there too. Like
yeah.
just the absolute, like, whenever I see people playing it, I'm just like I feel like, I feel it in my heart. Oh,
Well,
like
let
that
us
damn sea serpent.
yeah, let's go ahead and segue to a game where you were recording for quite a bit. Let's talk about Dying Light 2, and I guess I'll kind of let you drive this conversation, because in particular we talked about it, that with the last episode going live on Friday. You mentioned, yeah, I kind of want to talk about like the, your process behind it and all that stuff. And since I did at some point in the process get to the point where I was like, all right, you know what, I am just going to sit down and play this game. We can have kind of a broader conversation on the game itself. But yeah, tell me, where do you want to go? Where do you want to talk about
Let's start
with
off with a
Fred in it?
review of the game.
Okay.
Man, holy crap, this is a 7 out of 10 game.
Yeah, like
Like
I,
eight, like there are
um,
times when that game gets up to like an 8, maybe an 8.5. But oh man, after playing this game for 34 episodes of Friday Night Dying Light,
mhm.
this is a 7 out of 10 game.
It's probably like a 6 or 7 for me. Yeah, like knowing that we were talking about it today. I was like, and having beaten it, a couple months ago now or whatever. Let's see. Let me look at my trophies when I was playing that all. Yeah, June. Um, like I basically binged through that game in like a week or two, and that was playing through it and then playing through it like on New Game Plus. And I like, whenever we've talked about it a little bit here and there, like I know big picture story beats, but like character names I've already forgotten, and like it is one of those quintessential, like, it's fun and fine in the moment of playing the game, but it is a completely forgettable, completely disposable experience. I mean, I was looking at my my game of the year list, and it is currently number 10 in my rankings for game of the year, but that's also Disney Dreamlight Valley that I've been putting a ton of time into the last few weeks. I have not added to the ranking yet, and it's easily going to bump it out of the top 10 spot. So, it's
The
it
only
like,
way this game makes it in my top 10 is if I actually don't
if you
play 10
don't
games
play
into it.
10, yeah, 10 games. So yeah, yeah, I mean, you hadn't played, neither of us had played the original Dying Light, right?
Mm.
So like, I think, at least for me, I was kind of coming in with this, like, the first Dying Light is this like cult classic, and like people really loved it, and people really loved like the parkour stuff, and all of the like the movement of the game. And I will say, like I enjoyed those elements fine enough, especially like late game where you have basically everything unlocked and you can just be
Yeah.
bouncing around the map and using the paraglide or parasail thing and flying around and all that. Like, by the end of this game, flying around the city was a fun element of the game. Even, I'd say maybe even by the second half. Like, once you unlock that, like the glider that Lawan gives you, um like the game feels like traversally it opens up a lot more.
Mhm.
Um and like, admittedly, like the first half of the game is much smaller buildings, so it's designed for you not having that movement, that freedom
Yeah.
of movement yet. Um uh but yeah, like, obviously one of the biggest reservations I had going into it was like, I'm not a big zombie guy, or I'm not a big horror guy. And
Yeah.
so the like playing it, like the hey, the game is like manageable during the day, but then like the hordes really come out at night. I was very wary of that. And like, admittedly in part because I was playing on casual mode and stuff, but even like New Game Plus, where basically a lot of that kind of gets thrown out the window, and you're just going to be flocked with brutes whenever you're running around at night or even during the day. Um, I like it didn't bother me nearly as much as I thought it did. There were a few moments where like I turn a corner and somebody's right there and I had a little bit of a jump scare moment.
Yeah.
But like there's such a like you have so much power for the most part. The only like combat wise, the only times that really sucked were when like a brute would like tackle me that I didn't know was coming or something. So suddenly I'm
Mhm.
thrusted into that animation of them like in my face. I'm on the ground, and it's very easy to not be able to get out of that cycle. They'll just kind of keep slashing at you or whatever, and suddenly you're just dead. Um,
Yeah,
especially if
I
there's like a
think
few more around you or something. But for
I
the
think the
most part,
saving oh,
I
go ahead.
like for the
You go
most
ahead.
part, I was going around and doing things at night because that was where I was getting the best supplies, and like clearing out like the GRE facilities or whatever. Um, like most of those enemies are at night, just kind of like like standing zombies. And so like they're easy to sneak up and take down from behind or stuff like that. So like it was weird because I found myself just doing more at night than I was expecting going into it. So like, it was a fun enough combat experience, but yeah, as I said, like ultimately incredibly disposable and forgettable. And um yeah, like I never really felt like I was building to much. Like gear numbers were going up and stuff like that, and I was obviously getting experience and unlocking new things, but even the new things I was unlocking, I wasn't really doing a ton with. There were a few abilities that I like really relied on, um, especially late game. When you get the grapple hook that kind of lets you fly around, and you level that up, it becomes you basically you become Scorpion, and you can like
Mhm.
shoot it out. People whip them to you, and if you do that in an area that has like the um, what are the like basically spikes on the metal racks or whatever, I was launching people into spikes and just like one hit killing them. um, so made for some easy like zombie killing times, um, but yeah, those are I think some of my broad overview thoughts. So let me throw it back to you.
Sure. A couple of things I want to say about what you were saying. One, I think that a lot of people expected it to be much more of like a zombie horde mode at night. I mean, like, oh, you have to fight off these hordes of zombies. The game actually incentivizes you to run away from those hordes.
Yeah.
And I think that was a very cool and smart thing. Is the idea that we're like breaking down experience into like parkour slash running experience, and then actual like physical fighting experience. And breaking those two apart, I felt, and for the fact that you didn't get like multiplier bonuses for fighting at night, at least not very much, but you got tons for running. So if you built up these like long, massive hordes that were just following you through the city, you could just like really run up that XP really quickly. And I definitely abused that off camera a lot.
Hmm.
Um, because I would just do runs where it's like, cool, I'm going to do this, and then all you have to do is get back to one of your safe houses. So if you plot from like one safe house to another safe house, and you were just making as much racket as possible,
Hmm.
especially late game when you have the paraglider, you have the grappling hook, like all this stuff, you can really rack up those points quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I did that.
I for a trophy at one point, I just bounced on one of those like yellow trampoline things between buildings while like the horde meter kind of went to like the top level, and it was because you have to basically like there's a trophy for like having a fourth level horde at for 30 seconds or whatever, and they can't get you. The only way they can hurt you while you're on those things is if they throw at you and just manage to hit you with like if they're the spitter type or something like that. And so but like usually they're not going to be able to take you out by doing that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, then as soon as that trophy popped, I bolted over to the nearest safe house and
Mhm.
let that all die down because yeah, it's
Yeah.
basically like hey, it dies down immediately.
And honestly, the best way to actually get combat experience is in the kind of like mini arenas that you find yourself in when you're doing side missions. Stuff like that, where like you're fighting up against the renegades and different factions and stuff like that. That's really where like your combat multipliers are going to go anyway. Now on the flip side of that, I do want to say, like, I think that this game, what it tries hard to do, it does well. The traversal, the parkour, um, the problem that I think came into it, and the thing that I know they tried really hard on that I think they failed on, is combat in that game. Combat in that game, they tried way too hard to incorporate it into the idea of momentum and like to tie it into the parkour. Like, oh, he's a good fighter because he's like incorporating parkour into his fighting. It's like it just doesn't work that well.
Hmm.
You end up finding a set of combos that works for you, and for me, it was attack, shove, grab, throw, smash head, jump and smash head, jump
Hmm.
and smash head, jump and smash head.
Yeah.
Like that's just what I did over and over again, especially in the end game, where it's like it got visceral to the point where all I was doing is just like
Yeah.
running around, grabbing people, throwing them on the ground, and then smashing their heads.
That was the
Um,
other like, if I didn't have a spike that I could yank people into, I could yank them and then they were on the ground and I jumped and smashed their head. You just
yeah, it
reminded
just
me, like, yeah, that, like, because I didn't realize that, like, leveling that up in my first playthrough was so OP, because I just didn't use it as like a weapon. I used it for the traversal elements that it gets introduced to late game. um and then, yeah, it wasn't until my new game plus where I was like, all right, well, I've got all these resources to to just like level everything up, so let me just do it. Where I was like, oh, this is game breaking.
Yep. And I think that and so like the combat I think is weak. And one of the things they're putting out in the DLC is like, oh, we're gonna take you down to these underground arenas. It's like, okay, so you're taking me to like the least cool parts of like and features of your game. Interesting. Uh yeah, no, when it comes to this game, I think that what it does extremely well, it does very, very well. The idea of like, taking an alternative approach to zombies as far as how you approach them being this like this you can't avoid it, they are there, and so your job is to try to survive them, and the best way to do that is to quote unquote run away, and it works super well. I think that that aspect of it, of the idea of like running and staying human, and with the aspects of you can only be out in an un UV lit area for so long before you start to turn. Like these sorts of things keep you from abusing the game, like the nighttime mechanic of the game too much and things like that. That I think are really cool. But the number one thing that I think this game does is it gives you an actual like really cool cityscape to run around. I just wish it was filled with more interesting things and a more interesting story,
Hmm.
and a story that kind of like made more sense. Like the story is super janky. Like I was really not impressed by, especially by the ending. Um, just there's so much about the idea of like when they said "stay human" and was like part of the tagline of the game. It immediately drew me back to like remembering the events of Far Cry 3. And Far Cry 3, I think, is one of those games that actually um does a story of telling, like basically asking and questioning, like when you take a man out of society, what can happen to them. And I was really hoping that they would explore more of that, but all it ever came down to was people, the quote, they're literally like one faction is literally called the survivors, and then the other side is these peacekeepers, and these peacekeepers are like douchebags,
Hmm.
and the majority of them suck, and they don't care actually about people, they care about control and power. And like there is just so much that goes on within this. They set up this idea that we're going to have factions, and what faction are you going to side with? Okay, but at no point in time do I ever get attacked or penalized if I go into peacekeeper territory if I just gave something to the survivors.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
how many times do I have to keep spitting in the face of the peacekeepers before they just like, oh no, he's not on our side? There's never any actual real faction. There's no actual real quote unquote faction warfare. It's just like a way of getting like flavor of the world itself, and it's not done extremely well. I was really like, especially after you have this entire moment in the beginning of the game where before the larger city unlocks, where it's like, okay, this is the moment. Like you either side with the survivors or the peacekeepers, and then it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's really rough. It's really rough to see a game that had itself set up on this like kind of like idea of like. And the thing is that they have some really cool ideas. They just don't commit. They don't really do anything with it. And they want to tell the story of Aiden trying to find Mia, his sister, and it's not overly compelling in a way that makes like, because the only person Mia is this little, come on in,
She is a non-character in like she is the
throughout the
MacGuffin
entire
for the
thing.
entire game, and like to the point that like I mean
Like we can go full spoilers.
yeah, I
Let's
was
go
gonna
full
say
spoilers.
spoilers
Yeah,
for this.
yeah.
When she does come up at the end, I'm like, oh, I didn't like. I was convinced at some point that she was going to that they were going to try and like M. Night Shyamalan it. She was going to be a figment of Aiden's imagination or something. So when she ends up like actually being a real person, but they still kind of do that of like, oh, she's not really your sister. That's clearly just a thing that like has been, like your brain has warped that memory.
Which is so stupid because
Yeah.
it would have, if they had made it be like, oh no, actually, like if they had shoot, what's his name, Waltz. If they had been basically be like, if the revelation had been like, Waltz is your father,
Hmm.
and like your father was the head of the GRE Reese, like the reason you guys kept going with him to different facilities for treatment is because you were his kids.
Hmm.
Like that would make sense. That would make total sense. And that's like, it would be wonderful when he says, because Waltz has a wonderful reaction to when he realizes who you are. When you go like, give me back Mia, and he stops and he goes, Aiden? And then he gets hit by the crossbow bolt by Lawan. And that's a really cool moment for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, he Aiden wasn't just a name on a piece of paper for him, or the name of a test subject. Aiden was actually important to him. And then it'd be like, oh no, you were just kind of like Mia's favorite friend in the testing stuff, and like, but she's who matter. Like, gosh, like there's so many things that they do that just suck as far as storytelling goes.
Hmm.
And the ending epilogue is the worst of them all.
I
It
Yeah,
sucks so
we
hard.
we can dive into that. I mean, like just on that note of the storytelling, I found myself, especially it was a weird thing because like I was playing this about halfway through your run. So all I really knew about the game up to that point was coming from like your episode descriptions. And so like I would hit points in the game and be like, "Oh god, that's like when I got to the fisheye,
Hmm.
I was like, "Oh, I've already made it to the fisheye, and this is where Cameron just got to, or something." And it has taken Cameron 15 weeks to get to this, to get to this, or whatever. What,
Let's move.
what, like, whatever that actual timeline was that like worked out. I was like, "Oh, okay." And then like playing through the
By
rest of the game,
episode 15, I got there. There's a
yeah,
difference
yeah.
between that.
Well, but like it was more just in a vein of like it was giving me perspective on like moments that you were highlighting from
Hmm.
your game, but then also like beyond that, it was like, oh, here's how much Cameron has left to play of this game. Okay, this is good. Like figuring out, okay, how long is it going to take him to finish this series? But it was, yeah, it was fascinating because the game story wise like introduces threads and then just completely abandons them,
Yep.
and or like even even the fact like in that same spirit of like how late into the game it takes before you're introduced to Lawan, who, obviously with Rosario Dawson like playing the character was all over the marketing and was like the big get for a casting thing. So like to see her role ultimately be like a introduced so late in the game, and then be like not a nothing role, but like certainly kind of a, oh, this is like, I don't know why the company put like that much resources into getting a named actor for that role compared to all the other characters in the game.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Yeah. No, it made
like,
no sense.
like if they had done it for other actor or for other roles, well, like if Hakan had been like a big, here's also a recognizable person to go along with Rosario Dawson, or Waltz had been like a recognizable person to go along with it, it would have been like, okay, there isn't like this disconnect there. But the fact that it's like, here's a star that we're putting in to a largely supporting role, and yeah, just like that weird disconnect, and then just also her story being very like, like, I could tell you all of the things to like let you know who I am now, but I'm not going to for mystery story suspense reasons. It's like, all right, like you're not as interesting as you think you are.
And that's
um
I think that's part of the problem is like these characters aren't that interesting. They don't have like the thing is if there was more if there was more internal conflict, if the conflict that you encountered and the decisions that were surrounding these characters actually matter, then yeah, like it would be something. I think it isn't until like close to the ending where like actual confrontation and choices you make actually matter to like the fate of like a larger storyline.
yeah.
Um it just doesn't, and it's frustrating in a lot of different ways. For example, I saved what's his name? A something. Um
Hakan.
Not Hakan, it was the peacekeeper who
Oh, yeah, who like follows you into the tunnel at kind of the midpoint of the game, and then
yeah,
gets
and
brought
then
into the aircraft carrier thing. Yeah, I saved him too, and then that goes nowhere.
nowhere.
uh,
Nowhere. It was for me, I had to make a decision in that moment because I mean, anybody who knows you, like you saw me in that moment, like really like seriously like contemplate like what am I gonna do in this moment?
mhm.
What am I gonna do? I'm super conflicted over like what I should do in this moment.
Yeah,
And like I actually like stopped the game. I was like, I have to think. I have to clear my head. I have to kind of like get through this because my first thought was like, no, let him die because I
uh-huh.
can't let it get out that I was like responsible for the peacekeepers all getting slaughtered in
Yeah,
the original area. And like
but
there's a
clear
lot of
eyes,
like
full hearts
really
can't
cool
lose.
threads there and they don't matter.
Yeah, yeah. That was such a like that is one of the big ones I think of when I think of the game, of like the fact that like clearly, like for me it strikes me as clearly they just end the story there, because yeah, if you do let him die, or or you kill him by making sure that he's getting the wrong medicine, the lethal dose or whatever, um like that story would end, and yeah, they won't ever you won't ever hear from it. But the fact that like if he does survive, like I don't think I ever saw him in a scene again. Like there should have been some kind of continuation of that story, and like it's just wild and absurd that like for as much as they were touting how your decisions will matter in this game, how little they actually did or felt they
Yeah,
did, to some of those like side quest things. And like maybe that is just like scope creep of the game. Like maybe they had the best of intentions in, yes,
sure.
a decision like that would impact how things play out in the final sequence, when you do start having like peacekeepers and the renegades and the survivors, like butting heads and all that stuff. But yeah, it very much was like okay, none of that stuff mattered. The stuff like that I did with the survivors before heading over to that tunnel, like I was like, when I went back to the area it late in the game or whatever, which like you definitely don't have to do and could very easily just never go back. I think maybe you
Yeah.
have to go back for like one thing or something like
You have to
that.
go back to for the GRE scientist at the towards the end game.
Yeah,
You have to
there
talk
you go.
to
Yeah,
you have to talk to whoever's in charge in that area.
yeah.
That
But
is.
like like apart from that, you could just never go back to the opening half of like the opening section of the game. And it took me a while to, because I didn't like, nothing in the game really like drives you to using the metro fast travel stuff. Like it's there, and once you unlock it, I like was using it a lot more.
It's
But
super useful. I like
yeah,
that should have been a bigger deal.
like that there should have been like a part of the main quest that like introduces you to, hey, here's how you can get, because like that was like I hit that point of like I can't even with the glider, I can't go from like this part of the map to the old place. So how do I get back over there? And it wasn't until like unlocking the metro that I realized, oh, I can, which also like just breaks my brain in terms of like, all right, so they were able to completely clearly like clear out the broken down, completely rubbled metro station. So now I can just take a subway back and forth across the city. All right, seems like you guys should have been doing that 20 years ago.
Oh, no,
um,
no, 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 they had a like a, one of the lines was going through, but it was stopped because the Peacekeeper commander was murdered. And so they were basically
um,
holding the inner city hostage from the outside,
Gotcha.
and to try to put pressure on the survivors to give up who killed them. And it
Mhm.
like that entire plot line could have been way like should have been way cooler, and it just wasn't.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. It
I
it was just kind of shitty.
it was also like, and this is not unique to a game like Dying Light, but the issue of forward momentum of story beats versus I'm gonna just go and check boxes off in the open world meant that like a part of that story element was like at some point you see a tattoo on a guy's arm or whatever, and then like later you find like the tattoo basically like carved off or whatever, and I completely mixed up what characters had that tattoo, so I got very confused when I was playing through originally of like, wait, what is going on now, what did you did I see, like I in my mind, I had seen the like the shitty brother of like the survivor
Yeah.
leader getting like that tattoo like put on their arm. When like thinking back through it, it was like, oh no, I think he was getting bandaged up or something.
Yeah,
And
he was getting like bandaged up. Yes.
yeah, but like I had like misconstrued that in my mind, so that when I end up seeing this later, I was like, wait, does he have that tattoo? And this is like the tattoo of the original guy, and so he was going to try and impersonate the person just by that tattoo. I got very, very up in my head and confused about it before realizing, oh no, it was just way more simple, and the tattoo belonged to the guy that. I was tasked with finding 10 hours ago what happened to him and had completely forgotten about. So like that was another element of playing a big open world game like this, where I got, sidetracked by doing courier quests or other random things, like random side quests in the game, or going in and doing like GRE facilities to like unlock inhibitor chips to build myself up and make myself stronger and all that stuff. So that like the forward thrust of the narrative also just, yeah, sometimes got very lost, and I was like, wait, why is this, who am I helping here, why are they important, yeah, all that fun stuff. um
Yeah.
yeah. Any other bits that you want to highlight or gripe about?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on before we end things out. I think that one thing I wanted to say is that despite my feelings about this game, and I did kind of keep them close to my chest throughout playing the game, I probably came off that I was enjoying the game a lot more than I was. I was deeply frustrated with several parts of it, especially in regards to the story. But I will say that one thing that really strikes me is that this is a kind of game that for a for an open world game to be first person takes a lot of it's a very difficult thing to try to tackle. And I really, really did appreciate the way that the problem that I have with Dying Light 2 Stay Human is I wanted more from this game than I got. I wanted more from it. It's not a matter of, oh, I could have done with this, or I could have done with less of that, or more of this. I just wanted more from this game than what it was going to give. And so on that aspect, that really does impact kind of my feelings about it. But overall, I think this entire process, and kind of this is kind of like my final kind of like touch on this, is playing this entire game from start to finish and doing an entire Let's Play series about it has been extremely interesting to be playing so much of a game that most people have left behind so long ago.
Hmm.
So many people, like I was playing this game during a point in time where the zeitgeist had so far gone past this game. This
Yeah.
game was no longer even in people's memories. And
Especially,
It
like, it was immediately drowned out at the time by the one-two punch of Elden Ring and Horizon, and even, like, Horizon people don't really talk about now. Like, Elden Ring still lasts the test of time because FromSoft fans will never shut up about FromSoft. But yeah, like, it very much has been like like, none of this has been good for SEO since, like, d almost, like, week 4. Um
Yeah, no, it's true. It's this was not the game to bet on for the Let's Play series, that's for sure. No, but I think that what this game overall did is it did give us this level of content. We were able to get through it, or let me rephrase that. I was able to get through it and put this. I think a rather enjoyable time with this game. And I think if you want to give this Let's Play series a shot, I know that we've spoiled some stuff in here if you haven't watched it already. I know it's a lot to ask. It's a 34-part series with some episodes ranging from an hour to 2 hours. Um, like that's a big ask, but I think that what was more important for us is that we got a project like this done.
mhm.
Because I do say we, I do think that this overall was a team effort, whether it was you being on the producing end of it, making sure that it got uploaded and scheduled correctly, all of that. Um, Keeping on me to make sure I got you the episodes because it was a pain in the ass to try to like get these fucking gigabyte like huge fucking files up to my Google Drive so I could get them over to you. Like holy shit, I had to upgrade my Google Drive for the first time in my goddamn life because I had to like I was like I really don't want to have to upload these again, man. I don't want to have to upload them again, so I had them all up, all of the ones that I had uploaded up to this point, up until last week, where the only one in my my Google Drive now is episode 34. And just in case, I'll delete it soon, but it's just been I didn't want to have to go through uploading those again, and so getting them over to you was just a pain in the ass, and you know it's just the nature of the beast in this case, but overall, like I learned a ton from this experience. I know, like I remember going through and editing them and like kind of piecing some of them together and thinking to myself, I need to do something. Like I can't wait for whatever I do next because I have a new entire kind of like format and thought process on how to approach this. But I think this is a good time for us to segue into kind of like, hey, this is what the deeper parts of the project were, and kind of like what our process was. So go ahead and ask away whatever questions you had.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know that I necessarily had questions so much as I wanted to kind of let you have the floor for this, but in terms of kind of like where you started versus where you are now, I'll say like because it's especially interesting because inspired by this, obviously I've been doing the Skyrim stuff, and I'll say like just even something simple like um for this series, for example, because I was basically just managing the uploading stuff. Like we didn't have specific like thumbnails for every episode or anything like that
Mm-mm.
to highlight. And I either could have asked for those, early on or and kind of like instituted, hey, let's get those so it's not just like the same image with just a little bit of text different for like which part we were on. But like doing a Skyrim centric kind of like playthrough thing, one of the elements was I do want to make just the visual look of that a little bit more engaging, for those. So like I'm having
Yeah,
to constantly think to myself like, and I'm this is something that even from like starting it to like now when I'm playing it, I will be playing an episode and like part of in my head I'm like, oh, this is what I'm going to use for the thumbnail. So I need to make sure I get like a good, clean, like moment of this as opposed to some of like my other thumbnails. It's like, oh, I would have used that, but I was moving around too much or I was like aiming the camera or the subtitles, are spitting up something that I don't want necessarily in the thumbnail. So even something as simple as like think like I'm in my head as I'm doing the let's play of like that's going to be my thumbnail for this. And like some of that is I'm much more actively thinking about it now as opposed to like, I recorded a bunch of episodes a month ago or something like that. And when I finally got around to going in and editing them, there was this element of like, oh, what do I want to use for this? What did I even do in this video, start to finish? that I'm going to turn into the description for this episode and all that stuff. So I guess like how did your approach to that element, those kinds of ideas change throughout, especially because yeah, like by the end, or I mean not even by the end, but like all the last handful of episodes you recorded months ago at this point, but you're still editing and uploading them to me on a week to week basis, so you're having to come up with like, okay, here's the description, here's what I'm going to put into. Like, were you digging into actively and like going through and like reviewing and re-editing or reacting to the entire episode? Because for mine, a lot of times it's like I play it, if I ran into a big problem or something, I'll remember to make a note and edit a chunk out or something like that. But for the most part, like I'm uploading largely what I played as if it were like a Twitch stream or something. So what was your process like in all of those elements? I guess I threw a cannon of of questions at you. Go.
Yeah, sure. So I think first off, I have to say is that one of the first things I've learned since then, since I finished recording them, is that hey, instead of using my raw audio from my mic as my source, I should be using the like Wave 3 mixer output instead, because a massive mistake I made at the beginning and I kept making throughout the entire like recording sessions is that the audio being recorded was always raw mic footage or raw mic recording,
Mm-hmm.
which means I had to balance my mic audio with my in-game audio as well.
Gotcha.
And I was using so full disclosure, my suite that I was using was DaVinci, because it's free. And when I started this Let's Play series, I was a broke ass bitch. Like we got the game for free, and it's like, great, I got the game for free. I can do this. Let's do the series now. So like I was able to do that. I had to use DaVinci for it. I got really used to using DaVinci. DaVinci is like its own entire editing suite all built into it. So it's actual editing, audio, effects, all sorts of stuff all bundled into one thing. It's not as clean or as great or as in depth as the Adobe suite can be. That being said, it's free. And also the editing process is not as convoluted or complicated because you can, instead of importing and exporting files between different Adobe programs, it's all contained within DaVinci. And so I didn't have a lot of options when it came to editing my audio. But the actual process, and so this is actually where I spent most of my time going through those episodes, is like making sure my audio was balanced during very important moments. And just making sure audio levels were across the board, like sustainable throughout the entire thing. So I would find like very like high action moments when there's a lot of sound effects going on, and I would bounce around that. I would find quiet moments, bounce around that, and kind of like find that sweet spot. Yeah, it was a massive learning curve when it came to editing for me. But that was also what let me. The great thing about having such a linear game, as far as the story beats go, is there are episodes where I don't do any story.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got so involved in side quests. These two brothers and their just absolute numbnut adventures that they end up getting themselves pulled into. That I ended up spending so much time focusing on that don't actually even matter to the larger game, but I felt were actually very interesting and like had a lot of like weight to the game itself, especially in those early hours of the game. Like when you're dealing with like what happened to the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And like what happens because these two idiot brothers decided to take the dog, and like it's so messed up what they end up doing, what they end up getting. Like that poor dog didn't deserve what it got. Like those sons of bitches.
Yeah. Did you traumatize them by telling them what happened and everything?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
I forced them to tell the boy what happened to what they did to the dog.
That
like what they did to put the dog in danger.
Yeah, that seems like that goes against the whole Friday Night Dying Light aspect of, or Friday Night Lights aspect of the clear eyes, full hearts.
No. Because those kids need to have clear eyes And the only way they can have a full heart is if they're being open and honest, and then they can't lose.
All right.
Because guess what? Did I help that older kid get the stuff for his girl, like so his girlfriend's dad would get off his back? Yeah, I did.
Oh yeah,
Why?
and
Because
then
he fessed up and owned it.
and then he's like, "What do you mean you don't want to be with me? I thought by getting this, I own you or whatever." I was like, "Oh, kid, no, you just nope, nope. You just lost this, and I am completely supporting her." Like, yeah,
Yep, congrats, kid. You just lost the game. Okay, I'm out of here. I'm no longer helping you, you little shit stain.
yeah.
It was your idea to use the dog in the first place, you
Yeah.
piece of shit, kid.
You know, on the flip side, there were some stories I was glad that the game just kind of immediately or just completely forgets about. Yeah, that like, yeah,
That one was interesting. But so I had episodes like that, especially early on, especially in those like those, between 10 and 20. Those were definitely those episodes where I was really getting into it, and I like suddenly made a policy where it's like if I'm doing side quests, those will be outside of the let's play. But yeah, I found myself really getting lost in that game, but I found great moments where I could kind of like figure out like, okay, well, where was my headspace at this time? Because I didn't say Aiden was doing something, I said Cameron was doing something. I gotta find my lost sister Mia. Oh, running around the city, and it was great. Like I like doing that and kind of like putting it like where it's like Cameron's doing this because I kept thinking to myself, even though you wouldn't let me, in my mind, all the thumbnails were instead of Aiden's character, it had my superimposed big head on top of it instead.
I mean, this was your project. I probably would have been like, all right, I think this is dumb, but if you
there was
make
pushback on thumbnails. There was some pushback on like what we should be using for thumbnails.
I mean, yeah, well, there's general pushback of like, let's try and have things like have a like unified or professional look. But if like
that was it. Yeah,
like and like most specifically, like I'm thinking back to like the Hamilton on Hamilton one that you had with like Cameron Hawkins, where like it was gonna be like like that, or it was basically that conversational podcast thumbnail. Since I wasn't, that was like the podcast that you guys were kind of driving. I was like, well, I still want these to like look good and not just be like if you had put your face on there as like just your face, I would have been like, this is really dumb looking, but like if you can sell me on it. But it was like your face in a white box of like, and you were just putting that white box over something else or something like that. It, like that was where it's like,
no, that was
this is like
because,
bad MS Paint level stuff. I don't want like that necessarily.
To be fair, that was being used to cover up a Gamecaster logo that we didn't want on for that. That was for the first couple episodes. I forgot to turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to toggle that off when I recorded those early episodes. So in editing, we had to I had to do some finagling in there, and we got that settled. That was not what I was referring to. I was referring mostly. I think I was confusing it with the Hamilton on the Cameron on Cameron podcast that I did back in the day.
Yeah,
maybe I don't know. There was you know me, I'm always going to be pushing for like the goofy things, and that's fine. But I also think I actually agree with you that we need a more unified look for this.
Mm-hmm.
But in the future, like definitely, I have different ideas for like what I want the one is thumbnails, like for sure. That's a big thing to go forward. Going forward, I'm going to be looking for as far as like thumbnails go. But also a big thing also it was that kind of the main storyline kept it kind of on beat with like where things were at with what was going on
mm-hmm.
and like what I had been doing. And so for that part of it was pretty easy. I just had to know, like, I had to like watch parts of the episodes to be like, wait, what part of the story am I at here?
Yeah. And that's
that was it. Yeah.
It was a similar thing for me, since on the Skyrim one, I had like largely it's like, oh, I'm gonna go do the companions quest now, and I'll like the next few episodes will just kind of be companions quest. Or if I do take a break in between like that, it is okay, I went and in the middle of the companions quest I went and did the help the Red Guard woman from Hammerfell quest line, the Sadia that's there in Whiterun, and that's just like a weird little side tangent episode, and then I go back to the companions, and then like from there I went and did like the Thieves Guild stuff, and then I went and did the College of Winterhold stuff. And so a lot of that is like easy enough, especially because like at like recording wise, the beginning of a lot of those episodes, I'm in the menu with like, here's the quest I'm going to intro in and say, here's what we're going to do for this episode. And then like, it'll like, I kind of adopted a similar idea of, well, a lot of why I'm playing Skyrim right now is just because I, like, wanted to I had that Skyrim
Mhm.
itch, and so I don't wanna just have to be playing the game for the content or have the camera on the
Yeah.
entire time. So, for, like, a lot of, like, miscellaneous one-off random side quests, I would just kinda do those off camera and kinda do those in between, like, recording episodes and stuff like that. But, like, I wouldn't be out there doing, a main Thieves Guild quest if I wasn't recording it or something like that. So there's a similar mentality and vibe to that, which yeah has made when I finally go back to edit those episodes, a month after the fact or something, to be like, okay, I'm like. I don't have to scrub through the entire video to find, what I was doing in this one. I can come up with a description for here's what we did in this episode pretty quickly, but there is still like okay, so like thinking back to that, what is going to be the visual that I want to put into the thumbnail for this? And sometimes that's like way easier, and then other times it's like, nope, I got nothing. So I'm just gonna pick this random moment from from like a bit that I just lingered on just long enough that I can grab a non-blurry, screen grab of the moment or something. But yeah, it's there's definitely a lot to learn from these kinds of things. And like admit it, like I don't know if this format is even the best approach to these. Like maybe these kinds of series would be better as just like Twitch plays or something, like, and we just like it we're recording them live so that an audience can like engage with us if we have one or something. But it is also nice if you do want to kind of do any kind of post production or editing or anything like that after the fact to, not have that like immediacy pressure
Yeah.
of, all right, I'm doing that. Like there is an element of I'm recording this for the sake of an audience, watching it eventually. So I'm trying to not just like play the game silently for 40 minutes or whatever it is. Like I
Yeah.
like uh for the Skyrim one, I'm playing as a Khajiit, and so I'm doing a Khajiit voice as whenever I like respond to dialogue and stuff like that, which I have the benefit of that you didn't necessarily have the benefit of as Aiden. But
Uh-huh.
so there is like that extra element. All right, you can like drop the weird little like Trevor's such an idiot smirk on your face right now.
It's not that, it's that, man, I like that, like, I did not I know you're doing it, but every
Mhm.
time I think about it, I can't help but think, like, I'm just gonna put it out there. That's incredibly brave. I would not have the guts to do an accent. That's not true. I would do it, but it wouldn't be like,
I mean, specifically, like, I mean, to another like fun kind of behind the scenes thing, to your like the audio mixing stuff element of it. I originally recorded the first 3 episodes of me playing through Skyrim, and then when it went back to edit it, my microphone was not being picked up by OBS because I'm just doing everything directly through OBS. So it's picking up my mic, it's picking up the game audio, which I'm hearing in my headphones as I'm playing. So like, I know how loud I am compared to how loud the game audio is. And I would not have the ability to like isolate my own audio and edit it after the fact. So like, there's the element of like, like I have the benefit of I've been doing let's plays, 2 let's plays a week for almost 2 years now, on the channel. So like the setup is pretty much like set, and I'm good on that front. But when there is an OBS update and suddenly it breaks the link of like what audio input it's using, and I go back and listen and I can see myself talking, and the web captioner that I use for like subtitles is clearly picking up my audio, but I cannot hear myself. I'm like, well, shit. So I completely had to like re-record those first 3 episodes, and and the benefit of doing that was originally I think I was just playing through as like a Nord or something like that, and I was like, you know what? No, I want to
Mhm.
be a little bit more fun. I want to have some like character to this. I don't think I've ever really played as a Khajiit, but if I'm going to try and like get into this and have some fun with it, Khajiits have, the that fun little dialect that they have to them that is, a little bit more malevolent if you want to play it that way or whatever. So, and it just makes it a little bit more like engaging as opposed to just me reading out, the line that I'm selecting in the dialogue tree or something like that. So, and I don't always remember to do it, but I try and have fun with it
For
on
sure,
occasion
yeah.
and stuff. Um, so yeah, it's an element of that Let's Play that keeps it from just being me playing and you know reacting to the things I'm doing or whatever. Like I'm definitely playing enough of it and commenting a lot as Trevor as opposed to as Trevor the Khajiit. Um, yeah, laugh it up, fuzzball. But yeah, it's definitely a different beast, I think, than what we normally do, and especially on
Mhm.
these kinds of like long form projects where like this one I think especially feels stretched out because it was a once a week kind of thing. And yeah, over 34 episodes, that's going to take 8+ months to get out from start to finish,
Yeah.
just like that Bond show this year was, 25 episodes, 26 episodes with the kind of the finale that we did. So it took half the year to watch through 25 Bond movies. And there's, the programming element of like the thing I'm proudest of is it would have been very easy to just be like, all right, this isn't getting views. I don't really care about the game that much. Nobody's gonna care if we stop midway through. Nobody's like dying for this content every week for us
Oh
to
yeah,
like
no, for sure.
stick
Like
stick it out.
I've gone back. I've seen the numbers. There are no numbers on some of these episodes. I know.
Yeah.
I don't look at this as a. I didn't do this for the fans. I didn't do it for the audience. I did this for me.
Hmm.
I did this to prove to myself because something that I a little bit just a tidbit of a peek behind the curtain is we were talking like COVID really messed us up
Hmm.
in regards to like how our site was going on. Everything else that happened, sure, but this kind of like
We had like grand schemes and ideas back when we launched late 2019, and then we went to our big first big event at PAX 2020, and then like immediately the world shuts down. And we're lucky in that we were already recording podcasts and stuff
yeah
remotely anyway, so we could just kind of keep doing that. But yeah, like we had a number of other ideas that we were planning on, and COVID, not even for like technologically we could have still pulled off a lot of
oh
things
for
we wanted
sure
to do,
100% yeah
but the energy was drained, and obviously like the site as a whole took a blow when Ben, Chloe, and then shortly after Christian all kind of left right in that that first summer wave. And
yeah
then
no we
Jazz has not been around as much. Frank, having a job situation meant he hasn't been around as much, so it's largely like you, me, and Logan holding things down. And so these couple of
yeah
projects of like, hey, we're gonna do this and commit to actually getting it done, even though we have a negligible audience, that like this isn't going to suddenly like blow up for us or anything
yeah
like that. But it is still like it's in the same vein as like back when I was doing Trevor Trove and writing every day. Like I would go and look at some of the numbers and be like, all right, like two people are looking at my blog posts, or when I was doing daily vlogs, like seeing the views on those, I'm like, that's fine. I'm doing this for me to prove to myself I can do something
yeah
for this long term or something like that. Um,
that really is what it comes down to, is especially from where I have been on this project, is I knew probably my first couple like by episode 5, probably episode 6, I knew this was not going to be the best Let's Play series of all time. I like writing was on the wall for it. Not only that, not only had like all the talk about it had been like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room by Horizon, Forbidden West, and then Elden Ring, like these two massive monumental games at the beginning of the year, they just absolutely snuffed out any interest people had for this game, and also stuffed out my interest. I wanted to play those games instead. I remember there was a conversation that we had where it's like, you told me, you're like, Cameron, you have X in the can, like X numbers in the can. Play other games. Like don't drown yourself in this game and trying to get through it because you just don't have the energy to record also doing this. And like I said, it came at a time when I was like taking on this project came at a time when I wasn't really like I had lost my job. I wasn't working. I was depressed. I was like this doing this Let's Play series has been a struggle, not just to do the Let's Play series, but my circumstances around it. My last 4 months have been 4 of the hardest months of my entire life. because I was taking on something that like honestly wasn't a good fit in the end of it, but like I've been under intense amounts of pressure and stress, and at the same time I have made sure to get this done. This being a priority for me has been a massive like way of looking at getting this project accomplished. And it's something that I'm insanely proud of, not because of like the high quality of it, not because of, it's the most interesting Let's Play series that's ever been, recorded and put into existence, but because I did it,
Mhm.
because I successfully completed this project. And it's something that a year ago, I don't think I would have given myself a shot at completing, because where things were at a year ago for us as a site, as where things were for us just overall, like you and I, we've talked about it plenty of times,
Mhm.
about like kind of like we had a like we were in a really rough spot as far as like not just motivation but also just kind of overall morale.
Yeah.
it
I mean,
was it was a hard time.
ye
It was a hard time because of the circumstances of life and the world and everything around that, but I felt like us accomplishing these projects this year has been us rededicating our, at least for me, it's been a method of rededicating myself to the site and to rededicating myself to I like, as I love to say all the time, I wasn't supposed to be a permanent co-host on anything.
Mhm.
I wasn't supposed to be this massive part of the site, but I have become that. And overall, I'm proud of what we've done in the last 3 years. I'm proud of the effort and work that you and I and Logan on with his part have done. But mostly, and a big part of it is I'm just proud of myself that I didn't give up, that
Mhm.
I encountered difficulties and overcame them and triumphed. And is my triumph a small pebble on in a mountain of pebbles and rocks on a mountain? For sure. But like I'm proud of that pebble. It's a fucking great pebble. I had a lot of there are moments when I had a ton of fun playing through this game. And especially towards the end of the game, like you can tell, like I totally the second to last episode, I let get way out of hand as far as its length goes because I was so enraptured in finishing the game.
Mhm.
And it was just like there have been so many moments where I've had genuine fun. Like going back and editing these episodes and seeing sometimes where like I get grabbed by a zombie and they come up to the face and I immediately have just like a nah, like an entire like thrown back reaction. Like I like it's gross, it's disgusting, I hate it. And like it's great. And I look at what we've done and what I've learned in this process in not just the editing, but also in the constructing a video, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, whatever you end up doing with it, and knowing what I want to do in the future, knowing how I've built things and put things together. I put together a static kind of like quote unquote set for recording all of my videos. I built these scenes to begin with and just be there for the entirety of the thing. And how easy it was for me then to just start doing like that took a big chunk of like I don't have to put chyrons or anything in there because I just have these static set pieces for the scenes. And learning about different aspects of how to edit things down, edit things out, like knowing like like how things mix together into the video and how to like separate different audio pieces and get that going. It was a lot of experimenting and a lot of trial and error. And but overall what I've learned from it, what I've gained for it, and what I look forward to implementing in the future here on that nerdy site in our future projects, um, is like what I gained out of this on a personal and quasi professional level is means so much more to me than just the product that we got at.
Mhm.
And I think at the end of the day, that's the most thing that I'm going to that's the biggest thing I'm going to take away from this project and from this game. And even though like it'll always be a hallmark to me because yeah, it's an entire 34 episode run, should have been 35. My bad. There was a bad recording. It happens. Matt's like a good chunk of the game that actually like a really cool, awesome part of the game just gone and missing. My bad, folks.
There's always one. It's always it's
There
you always got one.
always got yeah, and so like trying to figure out what to do in regards of going from there.
Mhm.
And like the trials and errors and things that I've learned, the lessons that I've taken, and what I look forward to kind of putting together in the future and what we do in the future. because folks, it's the end of September. That Nerdy Site's birthday is coming up, so we'll have some stuff to announce then. I'm very excited about, but what we do going forward, I'm very like I am or I don't know if it's but I am doubly motivated about what we have going on in the future
Mhm.
because of what we've been able to do this year. So
Yeah, it's been especially interesting for me as like the old hat at the site, because I think for you and Logan, especially with these like long form self-contained projects, they are harkening back to me like making the commitment. I'm gonna write and publish every day for a year, or I'm gonna like upload a vlog every day for a year, kind of thing. And I've talked multiple times that like those projects have absolutely burnt me out. And like after each one, I took time away and didn't really do anything. Like after doing the vlogging for a year, I was kind of like like I was happy to step back and be like, you know what, I'm gonna let other people kind of do their thing in the space. I don't really need to be here for this. Um, and then ideas started percolating, and that nerdy site ended up kind of coming out here with the original idea of like I'm going to have other people that will be doing stuff so I don't have to do everything, which is very much the benefit. But then also the mentality I have now is very much I want to prioritize everybody's like health and mental well-being first and foremost. So if we miss if we miss an episode, or like nobody's up to doing an episode, fine, we're gonna miss an episode. Like we don't we don't have nearly the audience that's going to matter, and we're not on some kind of cusp of discoverability that if we skip a week, like it's going to blow us up, which was very much that was very much what Greg would always preach, is like, don't like set a schedule and stick to it. It's like that works for you because you were at IGN, and you had a built-in audience. And I think like that so often gets like overlooked and forgotten about. So like those of us that like, there are plenty of people in the space who have done an episode every week for however long and still don't have a sizable audience, because that doesn't mean what it does, or what it did, 5-10 years ago, kind of thing. So I'm very much, and obviously we've done it probably most notably with this particular podcast, that nerdy site show, of like, you know, Sunday rolls around, it is basically like one of my like Sunday has, from my day job, Sunday is my day off. But with a podcast needing to go live Monday, I almost never have an actual Sunday off unless we decide to take a week off for the show. And sometimes it is like, hey, I just don't have anything to bring to the table this week. Nobody else is really interested in jumping in and doing it. So we're going to take a week off. And lo and behold, like we can still come back next week and nothing has ultimately changed. So,
yeah,
so like, it's almost like I've been through my Friday Night Dying Light thing of like, I had that project that, can be very taxing, but you do feel this incredible sense of accomplishment when it's done. And I appreciate that, like, both, like, you had that with Friday Night Dying Light, Logan had it with that Bond show. And I appreciate that, like, especially with like Logan with that Bond show, that is the most work I've seen him put into really anything, in my time that I've known him. The amount of like prep work he did for the shows, obviously he's already a font of Bond information, but like he went in and like had show notes for every episode of the podcast, and then alongside it was doing reviews of every episode of the podcast, and none of those missed their dates and all that stuff. So that was, I appreciate that, like the reinvigoration, or just like, it is the original like idea behind that nerdy site is this is a place where we can be nerdy about the things we're nerdy about. And if that's video games and movies and stuff, great, we can talk about video games and movies. But if it is, you want to talk about James Bond, all right, be super nerdy about James Bond. I don't know if we like, if our existing audience is going to have a lot of overlap there, but the fact that like by a mile our most like like our most responded to article ever is the NHL mascots ranking that Jazz wrote a couple years ago. Like that is clearly the thing that connected more than anything we've ever done on that nerdy site. Save maybe the people that accidentally or that click our video for that D plus show, Darby O'Gill, because every St. Patrick's Day thinking that we just have a fully uploaded version of that movie on our YouTube channel, and then click off after 3 seconds. But yeah, like
Hey, some people stick around. Some people stick around
no, they don't.
for
I see,
15, maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
I see the like view time. They do not stick around.
Yeah, so there've been people who stuck around. You showed it to me. It looked like there were maybe 1 or 2.
No,
Not the entire time. Nobody ever
No.
makes it to the end of that episode.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
But yeah, like I mean, like Jazz being super nerdy about NHL mascots and like, you know, writing about that. Like there's certainly an element. I mean, my personal focus, and largely I think because especially, you know, there were, you know, good chunks of time the beginning of this year where I was on and producing 4 podcasts a week, which just is a lot.
That's a lot, man. That's a lot.
So between that plus 2 Let's Plays a week, like my desire to write like I used to have fell out the window. Like my last written review was Final Fantasy VII Remake a couple years ago, and like I occasionally get the impulse to write again, and I still like make a point of I'm going to write, you know, a thorough like write up for all of my Game of the Year stuff when the time comes. But like obviously like written content is not really a thrust of our engagement on our site, and it is like largely what gets written is I write the description for the episode and then copy and paste that onto the site and put the episode onto a page on the site so it's there as well. But yeah, it's like it I always want to be accommodating of people's interest in what they want to do, kind of, you know, the flow of that coming and going, waxing and waning. And these kinds of projects, especially of like, hey, I want to do this thing from start to finish. It's not going to be an open-ended thing. I mean, like the reason that Bond show is only a YouTube show is because I was like, I don't want there's no point in us like getting a podcast feed for it and then having to pay like a monthly podcast fee to just kind of keep that fee alive when we know that this has like an end date. So just makes most sense to put it up where we can, you know, get it out there for free for people on the YouTube thing, and it will just always be there. Like I mean, like last year, we basically finally pulled the plug on that anime pod and the that wannabe film class podcast and that because there was no sign of ever coming back to it, that Ultimate Video Game List show. Like those all exist in their YouTube forms. And so the audio and stuff is still out there for people to enjoy, but like we hadn't put a new episode out of any of those podcasts for over a year. And so there was no point in paying a monthly upkeep on those podcast feeds. Despite, you know, people who like search for Chloe still occasionally finding them and going and checking those out. But yeah, it's definitely a mix of like, I mean, pretty much everything we're doing here, we're doing for us, or, you know, for like, I'm certainly appreciative of the people who are listening, but it's rare. And a few of them like will comment on YouTube videos and stuff like that. And I see those. But like, I'm never going out there and like looking at iTunes reviews because I don't have anything iTunes related really. Like it's uploaded through whatever, you know, through Libsyn stuff, but like I don't even remember the login to go and find if I needed to like look at iTunes reviews. So I'm not seeing much in terms of like engagement on these things. So a lot of it is like especially it is a great opportunity to connect with you and stay connected and catch up and see what's going on with you, whether it's on the episode itself or for the, you know, half hour we talk to each other before or after recording. Same with Logan, same with Frank when we are able to get him on stuff. And that's enough for me, really. I've definitely had points of like, yeah, maybe I'm just ready to like turn everything off and just be like, all right, we're like it was a fun run, but we're gonna shut everything down now. But these projects in particular have done a pretty good job of like quelling that desire, and I think in large part, yours in particular was like I do it. I didn't have to drive it. I had to still kind of like, yeah, like ping you to be like, hey, like it's almost Friday. Need to get this
I had a
uploaded
lot.
or
I had a
whatever.
lot going on. My
Yeah, no, absolutely.
time didn't exist for me on multiple levels of things going on.
Yeah,
So
no worries. But like the fact that I wasn't having to record and produce and edit and stuff, and it was just
mhm.
like you sent over the file, I downloaded it. As soon as it's downloaded, I'm uploading it to YouTube, and I'm taking the description that you've given me and putting that into the That Nerdy Site WordPress and the YouTube thing, and you know, from when you get me the information, it's like 5 minutes of work for me to do whatever else I
Yeah.
need to do with it. Scheduling the tweet deck tweet about it. Yeah, like all of that is such a low commitment that for me that it's not taxing on me or draining on me. For that Bond show, it was I just had to watch the movie and show up. I had like one bit that I was in charge of, which was, how many people die or how many people die in each episode, or how many people does James Bond kill in each episode or whatever. And I was just pulling those from like websites that have already done all that legwork and was just sharing it on the podcast and letting like Logan guess. And so like that was a nice one for me because it was I'm not like I'm just because like all of our setup and all of the stuff is run through my OBS, I need to be there typically to like run and upload the podcast and stuff. So I'm still having to like click start recording and everything. But like the fact that Logan is driving that show or drove that show meant that it was mostly I'm just show up and I'm here for it. I've touched on it a few times, like when I go and guest for my friends over at the Castle Vault on their Disney Plus themed show, it is one of my favorite times whenever I get to do it, because that is very literally I just watch the thing and show up and talk to them. Like I'm not even recording my own audio on those ones. Like they're just capturing it all through a Skype call and stuff. So it is like it's just always fun going to them and just getting to be a guest on a thing, which because of producing and hosting 3 to 4 podcasts a week here, currently only 2 with this and that D Plus show, while that News You Care About is on a hiatus while we figure out what we want to do with that moving forward. Like it I don't have that luxury. If we do want to, like, if in the rare times I take the week off, but you guys still try and like to get together and record something, usually something goes wrong.
Yep.
We don't get video, or somebody's audio is all
hmm
screwed up or something like that.
hmm
And so it ends up taking like a lot. It almost takes more time to get the thing together to get to me so I can get it uploaded and all that stuff. So like the original intent of like I won't have to do everything has never really been been able to be executed upon, but maybe someday we'll see. But yeah, I'm super proud of you for getting through this, and at the same time, if you had come to me and said 3 months ago like, hey, like I see that we're not getting the numbers. I'm not engaged in this anymore. I don't care about this. I don't want to do this. At the same time, I would not have said,
Oh,
sorry,
by
Cameron, you need to stick it out. Like,
yeah, no, by no means was anybody forcing me to do this. And in its own way, like I had so much fun along the way doing this.
mhm.
That like I said, it's a 7 out of 10 game. It's a 7. Sometimes it can kind of creep up to that 8 range. I think it kind of just sits pretty at like a 7.5 for me, but overall I think like it was still a fun game. One of my favorite one of my favorite episodes is when I spent like 45 minutes trying to climb that tower that's actually like the TV station that's part of a quest line that you
Yeah,
go through to get to the top.
I did the same
And
thing, by the way.
yeah, when I was doing that, I was like, I'm gonna get to like this episode will not end until I get to the top of the tower. It's like I get as high as you possibly can get,
And then
and
it's
then
like,
I fall off.
you need the grapple thing that you get during that quest, and yeah, yeah.
No, because I wasn't even inside the building. I was just on the outside.
Mhm.
trying to climb up, and it's like, why can't I climb up this building? And like, that's one of my favorite episodes. Is then it was like, oh, that's the TV station. Oh, okay. I'm coming back. Like everybody's like, oh, you're coming in here for the first time. It's like, nah, motherfuckers, I'm coming back.
Mm-hmm.
This is my revenge.
This is round 2 for me.
round 2, motherfucker, tower. I'm taking you out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like there are so many great moments, and like there are some really cool characters in the game that honestly just like I said, this game gave me so much, but at the same time, it just should have given a lot more to it. That aside, it was a fun project to do. Like, I know I said, oh, it was hard to do week to week. No, it was fun. At the end of the day, I had fun doing this. It reaffirmed to me that, yeah, not only do I love video games enough to kind of play a C+ video game, a B- video game to completion like this, but I'm having fun doing it, and I'm creating content while doing it. It's not just people watching me play the game. I'm actually having reactions to things, and I'm making comments on stuff, and I'm actually engaging with it. And I think I would have had a harder time had I not like been doing my best to stream last year.
Yeah. I actually, like, the thought just came into my mind when, like, going back to you being like, that's bold of you to be doing the Khajiit voice or whatever. I'm like, man, I joined you for a stream where you saying you got to know when to tow him, like several times. You have no problem
First
getting
off,
in
Trevor,
there
the song
doing
goes,
the role play.
You got to know when to tow him, know how to tow him.
Yeah.
Know when to tow him.
Know when to tow.
And day,
oh, okay.
You gotta know.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. No, there's a song.
You have no problem getting in and like doing the role play element of it.
I was on RP server with other people.
I know, but you were also doing it for an audience. So
I was indeed. It was a lot of fun. So that's why I took it back when I was like, when I was like, oh, why? Like that's bold of you to do that. It's like, wait, I've done that. Never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad. Again, congrats on making it through this project. If you, audience member, can go watch. We have a little handy playlist. I'll probably throw the link to the playlist in the show notes for this video and all that stuff, and pages and all that stuff. 34 episodes. Which again, especially just in the timeline of things, was funny, of like you being halfway through the game, me just coming in and like within the span of 2 weeks playing through the game twice. And then because you like it was definitely during a time where like you were taking time away from the game, and then
for sure
you came back. Like part of it I think was like me playing through it seemed to spark you to be like, all right, I'm just gonna go and finish the game, because
pretty much what
then
happened,
you know, like a couple weeks later you came back and in the Slack was like, all right, this is gonna end at episode 34. And that was, months ago when you had that. So it has just been like waiting for those. I think it was like July. Like mid-July. I basically played in like mid to late June. You came back in mid-July and were like, all right, I'm done with everything.
I had stopped. So behind the curtains look here, I had stopped at episode 29. And I didn't know how much longer I had left in the game from there.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, so when I wrote that in there, that was after I had actually like finished the game and recorded everything. But because I needed to know how many episodes there were going to be. And I got up to 29. And then from there it was, originally it was 30. But that's way before I realized episode 25 was totally scuffed beyond recovery.
Yeah.
Because it's literally like 12 minutes. It's like cut off at the end of episode 24. And then like from where that bump or like problem happened in my recording to the entirety of episode 25, that was the problem. And then when I stopped and did the recording for 26, it picked back up again in the right place. So it kind of sucks in that case. But that aside, it was that was like I didn't actually finish this game because I'm already catching up to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So
all right. Well, I think that'll wrap up this episode. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to tell me a little bit about Gundam Evolution, and then just talk about Dying Light and that nerdy site in general for a lot of this. It is going to be fun. Mm-hmm. November 1st is our anniversary alongside your birthday as well. So it'll be fun to, we don't have like plan set in stone, in part because I think there are some other things in flux in terms of like what we are planning on doing. But there will definitely
Yeah.
be new ideas and new projects inspired by some of these other projects. Like even that Bond show had a little bit of a precursor from like the summer of Star Wars last year with that D plus
Mhm.
show, where it was like, hey, we're just going to commit to watching all of the Star Wars movies over the summer there. And there are definitely other themed elements that I want to do for, that D plus show or something like that. And so, yeah, it'll be fun to figure out what we're going to do for going into year 4 of that nerdy site here come November. So stay tuned for all that. Let's go around our metaphorical table with any plugs we might have. Cameron, you can follow at Rev Cabot, CABBOTT. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cameron?
For the first time, I don't have anything other than just check out all of our stuff over at youtube.com/thatnerdy site.
Yeah, well, I mean,
That's where
like
everything's at.
the
So,
obvious shout out is dying Friday Night Dying Light, which we spent the last 40 minutes talking about. So yeah, but yeah, you can follow me at Trevor J Starkey. I will shout out that as well. Definitely like go check it out. Obviously, Cam put a lot of time into it, and it was a very a labor of love, but a solid project nonetheless. You can find my current running series of Skyrim, which because I'm getting to knock out 2 a week at least is the number count is climbing up somewhat quicker, and even there I have like the another peek behind the curtain thing was like I learned from you giving me the drip feed of 1 a week that I was like, if I have the time, I'm just going to take a day and I'm just going to edit and upload and get a whole batch of these ready to go at once. So I did that with like the first 7 episodes I had ready to go. Then I did basically like the next 7 I got uploaded. And then like this last weekend, I did like a batch of like the next 14 or whatever are all uploaded and ready to go. And so I'm basically like, I'm good until November on our, Tuesday, Thursday Let's Plays, which is, a nice little peace of mind so that I can focus on other things and kind of not have to worry about, all right, what am I going to try and pull from Xbox Game Pass or something just to fill the like Tuesday and Thursday quota that we've been doing. But yeah, so you can find all those Let's Plays over at youtube.com/thatnerdysite, or you can go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Comment, let us know you're out there. I guess there's that element too, because sometimes it is just refreshing to see somebody like respond to a thing we said, even if I don't necessarily remember what it was or in the context or anything like that. It's nice to know people are out there listening. But thank you for listening. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.